Hello, yes, that's right. It's Joe here for Joyrider TV, live from Studio 3, which is actually in my house in Vasiliki, Greece. And today, the internet is not going to let us down. That is going to be the big feature of this session. If this is your first time visiting the Q&A, what we're going to be doing is looking at your catamaran sailing questions, and I'll see if I've got any appropriate answers for them. Hopefully I will. We'll see. So if you're watching live, just say hello in the live chat. Put any questions you've got in there. If you're watching this later on, then just put any questions that you might have in the comments, and then I'll get back to you in the next Q&A live. Very good. And don't forget, while you're here, just to hit the like button, and if you're not yet subscribed to Joyrider TV, of course, that is very important as well, with more videos in the pipeline than you can shake a stick at, and that is quite a shaky stick. All right, so in on the live chat, we have got, first of all, Larcenti. Hello, Larcenti. He's got some questions here, or some statements. He's asking, how is the rubber grip holding up on the hulls? He did the same thing on his 16, but the grips have started coming off at the corners. Yet most of ours are doing absolutely great. They're on there. They're not coming off. That's like they're permanent. But we have got one or two which have started lifting on the corners. And what I did notice, because we were getting this rubber grip in big sheets, was that on the edges of some of the sheets, the glue didn't quite go all the way to the edge. So if they'd have been cut and then the bit with no glue had been right on the edge, then of course that bit's going to lift. And the thing is, with that rubber, if it lifts a little bit, then that's going to give the water a chance to get in there, and it's going to lift further, and eventually it's just going to be a mess. So that is what I've learned from the rubber grip experience, is that we need to check that the glue has got a good coating on all of it before we stick it down. And you don't actually notice if the self-adhesive backing is good or not until you take the paper off the back, and then you'll see if there's bits without glue. But there we go. So what we've done on the ones which have been lifting is just peeling it back a little bit more, cleaning it off, and then just using some regular contact adhesive to glue that on there. So there. And Larcenti continues, have you ever had your tiller connector nuts come off during sailing? So on the older boats, or the Hobies anyway, and it's not just 16s, a lot of boats, rather than having this this pin which is on the tiller end, which has a clip on top, and then the other bit, the connecting bar goes on there through the pin. The older boats have the tiller connecting bar would be shaped like that. Then there would be like a shaped piece of plastic like that, which matches, and then there'd be a spring, and then the same again on this side, and then that's where your tiller arm is there, and then through the lot of that would be a bolt, and then on the bottom would be a nut. Oh, actually, I beg your pardon, the spring goes in there by the nut. But either way, so what Larcenti's had happen is his nut has actually loosened off while he's sailing and dropped off into the water, spilling all this contents. And if you're thinking this looks like quite an unusual and messy system, I would agree. There's too much going on really on the old, what was called the TCM kit. So if your nut on anything, in fact, is coming loose, so it might be the nut that is holding on your tiller extension on the UJ that goes through, or the nuts that are going holding your rudders into the stocks. These nuts, which have this rubber plastic nylock part to them, over the course of time, those nylocks, which are designed to make the nuts really tight, they degrade and will eventually not be particularly effective. So what they're meant to do is, once you've screwed it on, so you've got a little bit of thread sticking out of the bottom of the nut, those should be on there, period. But as they get older, the rubber starts failing, and that is when your nut will just start unscrewing itself. So that is what I would say is the problem there. If all that you've got in your toolbox is old worn out nuts and you're really desperate to go out sailing, then what I would do is put two on, and then the two nuts should lock against each other, and that should sort out that bit of a problem. So there you go, Larcenti. I hope that helps. We've got Lee on board. Hello, Lee. Great to have you with us. And to all the Joyriders. Welcome to all the Joyriders coming from Studio 3 tonight, in case you hadn't got that, because I've just been in search of reliable internet. Oh, yes. So we can actually go through 3 weeks worth of questions all in one session. All right. So who else is on board? We've got Lift and Drag Racing. Hello. Great to have you with us. Do you do something with the main sheet when sailing under spinnaker? I just leave it there tight, but wonder if I should do more. Yeah. So perhaps you should do more than just leaving it in tight. Like if you saw the video that I did recently with the Tornado, where we were doing the 7 minutes of fury with that, I did have the main sheet cranked tight for most of that with the spinnaker up. That was because it was pretty windy, and that's where it wanted to be. But what we're looking for if this is our mainsail, so I'm not impressed with Studio 3's whiteboard facilities quite as much, but if this is the mainsail, on the back edge of the mainsail, we should have these telltales. And firstly, in the lighter winds, if you're sailing with the spinnaker, you don't want to have the main sheet cranked in particularly tight. If you haven't been trapezing upwind, or especially if you haven't been double trapezing upwind, then the main sheet will need to be eased a bit. I generally sail in the light winds as well with the Traveller Central, so that I get more twist in the main sheet, in the mainsail, so I have less mainsail in, and then as the boat starts picking up speed, you can then sheet the main in. So what we're looking for is, as we sheet the mainsail in, we're just looking to see when this bottom telltale disappears round the back of the mainsail. That means we've really got it close to the sweet spot. If we sheet in a little bit more and this one disappears, then we're right on the edge. So that's what we're looking for with these telltales. And that carries on through to strong winds as well. But in strong winds, because you're going so fast, you are generally going to want to be sailing with the main sheet as tight as it will go, because the main sheet is also supporting the mast as well by we're pulling from here, so we're pulling down, and the back edge of the sail is kind of the whole thing is pulling downwards, and what that is doing is supporting this otherwise unsupported top section of the mast, which is very good. So we're sailing with it tight. But in the strong winds, if you sail into an area of less wind, then if you just look at your telltales on your mainsail, and if you see that they've started disappearing there, then just ease a little bit of main sheet just to make sure that you're not oversheeted. And then as the wind comes on again, just crank it back in. So the main sheet should have some adjustment when you've got the spinnaker up. And almost in the same way as at the spinnaker, when you get a gust, maybe bring the spinnaker in a bit tighter. At the same time, main sheet comes in tighter, that gust goes, then vice versa will ease off on both of them there. So there you go. That's what I think anyway. Hello, Mark and Janet in Ohio. Great to have you on board. We've also got Cosimo. How you doing? Can I do a perfect tack on the Hobie 16? Yes, you can. Do you know why? Because I believe in you. I think you can. The perfect tack on a Hobie 16 or any catamaran is not generally going to be as quick as a perfect tack on a monohull. Monohulls will always, all right, let's not say always, let's not be hasty, but mostly tack a lot quicker than a catamaran. But on a catamaran, if you use the correct technique, then you should be able to tack your boat every time without stalling or stopping, and so that you actually feel like it was a good tack. The exceptions to this monohulls tack quicker than cats rule would be like if you had a fairly decent sized keel boat, and then if you compared that to something like an FX1 or a modern F18, or perhaps even an A-class, these modern boats with the flat bottomed hulls and daggerboards. So the hull profile on a modern designed catamaran would be sort of like an upside down triangle kind of thing. So the bottom of the hull is really flat. There's the daggerboard. And because this is so flat, it would be a little bit rounded in the corners, actually. It means when you go for your tack, the whole of the hull is sat on top of the water, not in it, like with a traditional boat with a rounded hull like this, where the water would come up to here. On here, the water would be right here. So there's no resistance at all. So on something like, let's say on an A-class, which has got this sort of hull shape, then when you tack it, there is zero resistance, which would actually mean that your tack will be quicker than some keel boats. There you go. All right, we've got Chris on board in Texas. Hello, Chris. Great to have you with us. We've got Zero to Foil from Berlin. Hello. Wow, we're really ticking the corners of the world here. We've got Panos in Patra. Hello, Panos. How are you doing? Great to have you. Kalispera. Ine iora ya mia bira. Zero. Right, we've got Scott in Oregon dropping it in the slot. And news just in, very specific news just for Scott. Scott, today your new custom Joyrider hoodie was shipped. Congratulations. If you'd like a custom Joyrider hoodie, just send me an email. Let me know what you'd like on it, whether it's your new sail colours, sail number, or the name of your boat, whatever you like. And I will design that for you and get that out to you. We've got Thomas on board, only 25 days to visit until he's next out here in Vasiliki. Great to hear it. See you soon. Nick's here in Ohio again. All right, and then we've got Mitch Mitch needs some help. Who should I buy new sails from? I have a 41-year-old Hobie 16. Wow. With original sails, I can't pay Hobie brand prices that are 3 to 4 times more expensive than the boat itself. Yeah, I can see your process there. Yeah, so a while back, actually, I did do a video on aftermarket sails. So sails made for catamarans, various catamarans by various sail makers. And this was helped by the Joyrider TV community, who all put in their opinions and their experiences with all these various sail makers. And the ones that came out on top in the US anyway were firstly Whirlwind Sails in California, where the main sail maker there actually used to run the sail loft for Hobie. So significantly cheaper than the original sails, but you get a very similar sail to the originals. The next one was Intensity Sails, which were also in the US, and the other ones are Salt City Sailing Sails. Those are the ones that come to mind. I would check them out, but also check out that aftermarket sales video. I think it was quite useful. If you're not in the US, most people are in the US, I believe. But if you're not in the US, then in Europe, the best non-original sails at a really good price is Forward Sailing, which is in France. And the prices those guys are doing the sales for are unbelievable. The other thing you could do is contact your local or all of the Hobie dealers around wherever you are in the world. Like if you're in the US, find where all the different Hobie dealers are around the country and find out if they've got any ex-demo or ex-competition sales, which would generally be about 30 or 40% off the price of new ones. But the sales will generally be only very lightly used with lots of life back left in them. So there we go. Hello, Laura in Santa Cruz. Great to have you on board as always. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks to everyone for tuning in and staying strong to the cause. I know I've missed, well, the last 2 of these Q&As has failed as we've been into it. So thanks for sticking with me and believing in the clockwork Greek internet. I think part of the problem, what that has been happening is as more people flood onto our island, all the internet for our island is just getting brought in underwater down a rusty old piece of cable, and there's more and more people using it. So perhaps that is why it's been a bit flaky of late. All right, so Mark says, what hull wax / sealer have you recommended in one of your recent Q&As? Or I couldn't say exactly which one it was. It was a 3M product, but of course I'm not in the workshop, so I haven't got that to hand. If you send me an email, I'll see about finding out. Or if you use a wax sealer, anyone else, and you like the one you've been using, put it in the comments below. And in fact, if you're in the US and you've been waxing your boat, put it in the comments either below or in the live chat, and that might help Mark out because Mark's in the US as well. And of course, I'm in Europe, so the products don't always line up. There we are. All right. So here we are. So Chris says on the topic of these nylock nuts, they only fail if you remove and reset them all the time. If you leave them be, they will never loosen. There we go. Top tip there from Chris. Oh, and here we go. Chris also says, Mitch, check out CNC Sailmakers of Houston. All right. Ollie says, how much did it cost to come to Vasiliki Bay and sail? Well, it depends on what you want to do. We are actually full for pretty much the rest of the season now. So unless it's really towards the back end of September, early October, we haven't got any availability. But what we do is we rent the boats by the hour or by the half day, or we do occasionally have the ability to rent out boats for a week, or not to rent out the boats for a week as such, more that you can join for a week. But because we're full, in theory, we don't know if we can do that until like 2 days before you're due to arrive. Whereas with the boat rentals, we can do that every day from about 1 o'clock midday. And the cost is generally for something like a Hobie 16, it's €50 for the first hour, and then every subsequent hour is like half price, so it gets cheaper for the longer that you do. And the longer you do, the more fun you have. So it's a win-win. You're saving money and having more fun. Yeah, so that is what we're looking at out here. All right, we've got DC Racing in Texas City having some issues with the hulls cracking on my NACRA 5.8. The front towards the bottom keeps developing a crack. It's from 1986, so I'm thinking it's just old glass. Yeah, it does sound like she's perhaps seen a lot of action. With any cracks that are appearing, if they are going to be repaired, if you don't happen to be a professional boat builder, it is well worth taking it to a professional boat builder and getting them just to sort it out, rather than for you to keep trying to fix it and then it getting worse again. Because with these cracks, you don't know what's going on beneath the surface. So what they'll need to do is rub it right back, which will actually mean they'll have to start putting glass back on. And to do that without adding a lot of weight, especially in the bow, it's definitely worth having a professional take a look at it. But I would say there's something going on underneath the surface layer there. Getting a lot of experience glassing this boat. Yeah, I can imagine. Oh, so you are having a crack at your cracks. But that's what I reckon anyway. Thanks for the question. All right, Scott, who's got a 16, says he bought a beautiful set of custom sails from Chip at Whirlwind Sails out of California. The main and the jib. Jib had the Velcro batten pockets, so the modern style that are less likely to get caught on your jib halyard, cost in total $1,300, which is a very good price, I would say, especially if you compare it to the new price. All right, we've got Mark on board. Hello, Mark. He says, thanks for the videos. Absolute gold. Yes, you're right. Just bought a Hobie 15. What do you think of them compared to the 14 and the 16? Great question. And in fact, we're just about to enter Hobie 15 season here. I did do a video kind of mildly based on the 15 last week. And we're going to be also looking at parts of the boat and what do they do. And then we're going to be putting the 15 through its paces on the relative speeds on different points of sail. We're going to be looking at a complete introduction to cat sailing on a Hobie 15. And then to finish off the Hobie 15 season, we're going to be taking her down the mine shaft and seeing what sort of distance we can cover in 7 minutes on a Hobie 15. But I think the 15 is possibly one of the best catamarans to learn on at all, because it's a very sturdy boat. I am in favour of the fiberglass hulls because they retain as long as you don't let them get water trapped inside for a long period of time, when you get this humidity in the hull, which leads to the soft hulls. As long as you don't have that going on, then the fiberglass hull stays stiffer for longer than the molded hulls, like you'd get on a Dart 16, for example. The 15 sails really nicely. It's very easy to sail. It's got loads of volume, so you could get, I think you could sail a 15 with 4 adults. Not all of them need to be massive, but 4 decent sized adults could sail a 15 together. We've got the double trapeze on there. It's a very sturdy boat, not as quick as the 16, probably not far off the speed of a 14, just depends on the conditions. But great boat, great choice. Well done on having a 15 there. All right. So from Zero to Foil asks, what is a good way to estimate a basic setting for the Cunningham? It's a carbon A-cut mast. Don't want to have it too tight. Afraid of damaging the sail mast if I crank it in. Okay, so the settings for the Cunningham are pretty much standard on everything. What you want to do, firstly, set your light wind setting. The way that you do this would probably be on the beach as a good start. So if this is our mast, then what you want to do is, with the boat on the beach, just pull the Cunningham or the downhaul on until you're getting rid of most of the creases. And then from your experience sailing the boat, then bring the main sheet in to where you would generally have it in light winds when you're really looking for power. So that wouldn't be absolutely hauling the main sheet in with 2 hands. It would be just pulling it in as you would do if you're sailing. And then if having pulled the main sheet in a bit more, if that puts more creases in the sail, because as well as the downhaul pulling the sail down, the main sheet's pulling it down as well. So when you're pulling the main sheet in, it will reduce the effect of the downhaul somewhat. So if that's putting more creases into your sail, bring on a bit more downhaul. It won't be much. And then when you get to the point where you've got rid of the majority of the creases with the main sheet on, that is going to be your minimum setting. And then what you should do is put a mark on the mast. So you know, as you're sailing along, perhaps you've been sailing along in stronger wind with more downhaul on, and then the wind's dropped off a bit, you want to power up. You know that if you ease the downhaul off to that mark that you put on your mast, you're going to be putting as much power into the sail as you possibly can. And then as the wind increases, you'll be incrementally increasing the tension in the downhaul. Now, I've never heard of a boat where you can't actually pull the downhaul as tight as you possibly can and then a little bit more. But perhaps, yeah, I'd be surprised if you can damage the mast or the sail by cranking it in hard, because what you want is, as the wind increases, so if you're trapezing and you're getting gusts, and on the upwind especially, when you're getting the gusts, the hull just keeps flying and it seems like the boat doesn't want to go forwards, it just wants to lift the hull, then you want more downhaul. So as you're sailing in more wind, more downhaul. As you're sailing in more wind, more downhaul. Just keep cranking it on. And then what you'll find is, when you're getting the gusts on the upwind, especially, by having the right amount of downhaul, the boat is just really going to go forwards a lot quicker. That's what I reckon. Like on the Tornado, for example, which has also got carbon mast, I'm never worried about putting on too much downhaul. Like more and more, and the more you put on, the faster the boat goes. It feels better. Right, we've got Sam on board. Hello, Sam, who is responding to Mitch, who had was it Mitch who had the nuts fall off? Oh no, the sails. All right, here we go. Looking for sails. Sam contacted some sailing schools and bought second-hand sails from Forward Sailing. And yeah, so he's just been getting in touch with everybody and anybody who might have some sails. All right, we've got Jesper in Sweden, experienced sailor, but new to catamarans. Would you recommend the Hobie 20 as a good start? I'd say if you're an experienced sailor, then pretty much anything is going to work for you. The Hobie 20 is a very good boat. I would say it's definitely a boat. I'd only get a 20 if you were going to be sailing with two people all of the time. Not necessarily for the actual sailing, but it's quite a heavy boat, the 20. I believe it was about 190 kilos, which is a heck of a ship to be hauling out of the water on your own. So definitely, yes, the 20, if you're sailing with somebody else. With them, it is quite a powerful boat as well, which just means to start with, only for like your first 3 or 4 times out, you'd want to be sailing in a slightly lighter wind and then gradually build up the amount of wind that you're taking her out in. One downside of the big powerful cats like the 20 is that they've got the mylar sails on there. So if you do capsize and land in the sail, there is a bit more of a chance that you're going to damage the sail. Whereas something with a Dacron sail, which would be like a lot of the older Nacras or the Hobie 18, Hobie 16, if you land in the sail, as long as the cloth's still all right, you're not going to damage it. But yes, the 20 is a great boat, quite heavy. And if it's a European 20, which I should think it probably would be, then it will have pivoting centerboards, which are very convenient compared to the American style, which has the lifting daggerboards, which just gives you something else to think about in the early stages. All right. So there we go. All right, we've got Sam with a question. Can't tension the jib too hard. I think it was something to do with the halyard. That's very old rope. Otherwise, have a big soft spot on the hull and looking for a new one. Sorry if you said this already, Sam. I don't think you did. Is that a Hobie 16 or is that something else? But with the if it is a Hobie 16, which I get the idea of it is, if you feel that you can't tension your jib halyard enough, then it's probably because you need to replace your jib halyard for something of a higher quality. You want, and I've changed my tune on this a little bit since I was in South Africa working with Dave and Islander. You want to have a high quality rope with a Dyneema core. I believe the jib halyard is something like 20 meters long. Maybe it's a bit more. But perhaps even go to 6 mil, because what you absolutely can't have is your jib halyard stretching. Also, check your jib blocks as well, because those blocks, they're just plastic. They will give up over time. Like if you've got a boat which is over 20 years old, definitely investigate your blocks. There we go. Sam's also looking for a new hull. We definitely need to know what sort of boat Sam's sailing if we're going to help him find a new hull, because not all hulls fit all boats. All right, we've got Canadian Tim on board. Hello. Tim's got an older Hobie 18, a lot of chips on the trailing edge of the rudders. What's the best way to fix this? Yeah, I if they're just chips, all the chips I've been having on rudder blades and daggerboards, I've actually been repairing rather than using like a gel coat filler, which is quite brittle. I've been using epoxy resin with micro bubbles in it. These micro bubbles are like a very fine powder, and you use those to thicken the epoxy, and it makes for a very sturdy filler that's good for doing any trailing edges, especially on the foils. Definitely rub them down first, get rid of any bits that have got even a little bit of movement in, so that you're doing a reasonable a lot of preparation, and that is going to lead to a much better repair. Yes, that is what I have been doing. That's what I'd recommend. I'm not a professional boat builder by any stretch of the imagination. I just have a go because I have to. All right, we got Ben on board. Hello, Ben. I go in 1 hour sailing on the Hobie 16 in Germany. Congratulations. Great stuff. Nice. All right. And then I'm just back to the wax for polishing your boat. Chris, who is very experienced, he uses Chemical Guy's Hydro Slick ceramic hybrid wax, and it works well and lasts a good while. Thanks for that, Chris. So there you go. If you need some wax and you're in the US, Chemical Guy's Hydro Slick. It certainly sounds like the business. Right, I'm just going to take a short commercial break. Yeah, so it is a commercial break. So what you need to do is head over to totaljoyrider.com, and as well as there being some very good articles there about many different things, and the speed stick leaderboard, which I had intended to update before this Q&A, but I didn't have time. I'll update it as soon as I've finished. You can also support Joyrider TV by buying a t-shirt or a hoodie or a hat or a water bottle made of metal, so you don't keep using the plastic ones. I've had this one now probably about 3 years, and it's just as sweet as the day it arrived in the post. So there you go. All right, I'm just going to go on to the first preloaded question for today, because I've got a few, as you'd expect. All right, so this one comes from Black Sheep, who says, what do I use, personally, me, for wind forecasting? I think you'll find that when you sail a boat, having half an idea of what the wind's going to do really does help in decide in the first place if you're going to go out or not. But yeah, so what I use as my first place to visit for what is the wind going to do is I use Wind Guru. Wind Guru is very good for a very quick look, and you can see it immediately what is going to be happening in the upcoming days in your area. I think Wind Guru does have forecasts for most places where any water sports go on around the world. So it gives you a very good overview of what's going to happen. And then for us here in Greece, in Vasiliki, I know what the forecast should look like if it's going to be a normal day. So if it looks like it's going to be a normal day on Wind Guru, I leave it there. I'm quite happy that it's going to be a normal day. However, if it looks anything out of the ordinary and I want more information, I use the website called Windy. I think it's windy.com, which gives a very good picture of the whole world and what the wind is doing and the weather generally around the world. And what's really good on Windy is if it is looking a bit stormy or there's some weather coming, you can actually go on the satellite view and look at the previous hour, and it will show you exactly what's happened on the satellite view from the previous hour. And that can give you a really good idea of what's coming for you next. So that is what I use. But I think what everyone would like to know, not necessarily in the live chat, but in the comments below, so that everyone can see it later, is if you could put in the comments below what wind forecasting you use and how reliable that seems to be for you. That would be great if you could do that. Thank you very much. Thanks, Black Sheep, for the question. All right. So in the live chat, we've got Ollie. Ollie sails a Dragoon in Jersey. Ah, very nice. And go racing in an hour. Any last minute tips? Been sailing for quite a while, even though I'm only 12. Yeah, okay. Here's the tips for going racing in about an hour. First thing, play it reasonably safe, especially on the start line. Don't, if it's going to be a crowded start, or definitely if you're in a Dragoon and you're sailing in a mixed fleet with other types of cat, don't go for gold at the committee boat in your Dragoon, because the chance of you pulling off that start is pretty slim, I would say. So don't do it. Yeah, I would start sort of middle of the line. And then if there are faster boats sailing over the top of you, then that will give you the option to tack onto port and don't sit in their dirty wind for any longer than you have to. And then the second piece of advice is always know where you're going. So before you start the race, clearly identify where all of the marks are, if you can, of the course, so you really know where you're going. Even if you're sailing against faster boats, have it in mind that, you know, things might happen and you might have to be in the lead at some point. You need to know where you're going. You don't want to just be following everyone. So you need to know where you're going. And the third and final piece of advice is try to keep the good vibes alive on your boat. When I go racing with Swedish on the Tornado, we call the boat the Good Vibes Express, just because if things start going wrong on the race course, it can be very difficult to keep that spirit of joy alive on the boat. So just really try to keep the good vibes going. Ollie says, I struggle with helm trapezing. If you're struggling with helm trapezing, only worry about trapezing on the helm if it is a decent length leg, and get the boat going first. So don't try to get out on the trapeze while you're a little bit not powering the boat up, not going particularly well. Get the boat going first. If you're sailing two up and you've got a crew, make sure the crew's out on the trapeze. And only when you're really stable, get your feet under the tow strap into that half trapezing position, and only then move out onto the trapeze. There you go. All right. So Mark says epic. I would have to agree. Thank you very much, Mark. All right, I'm going to go back to... All right, and actually, before I go back onto the live chat, thanks very much to Colonel Failure for a sweet donation, and he said goal in the live chat. Yeah, this is a fairly new feature. I think it's called Super Chat. If you ask a question or say goal with someone going like that and give money, I'll get to your question immediately. There we go. Easy as that. So thanks very much, Colonel Failure, who does actually happen to be my brother, and the proprietor of a very good YouTube channel if you like video games, especially about farming or driving trains. Yeah, Colonel Failure. All right, so back to the live chat. Back to the preloaded. This one's from Robert, who says, when I sail in chop and swell, the the mast rocks backwards and forwards because of the wave action, and the rigging isn't tight on 3 points, worried that it might cause a snap in part of the rigging. Maybe it might cause, so just to paint the picture of what Robert's saying, when he's out with waves on his 16, if he doesn't have his rig really tight, so if it was like lighter winds, stronger winds when you want a slightly looser rig, the rig feels like it's flopping around a lot. And as the rig flops around, it does feel, I know the feeling that you might break something like a shroud, forestay, one of your shackles might give up, you might lose a pin. So what to do in that situation, if you're sailing in waves with more wind, what I would do is, I believe it is known as the South African method, which is rather than just loosening your rig off and having it really sloppy, put your shrouds down so if you loosen the rig to where you'd have it while you're on land for the wind conditions, and then if your rig is really sloppy, take some of that slop out by moving the shrouds down a hole, maybe even 2 holes, and then you won't feel that the mast banging around so much, and it will have a very similar effect to loosening the rig. Of course, if you're then out sailing and the wind goes really light, you won't be able to just crank the tension back on, because you've moved your shrouds down. So, you know, you've got to have that way up there. So that is what I would do, Robert. Okay, so back to the live chat. Dopey Dave, thanks very much. Dopey Dave has just bought me dinner. Thank you very much, Dave. Say that again. Super sticker. It's called a super sticker, by the way. The Colonel has told me. Thanks, Dave. Yeah, I don't know what to have. Might have mixed grill, maybe steak. Maybe definitely a nice glass of beer. Thank you very much. All right, so back into the live chat. We're hitting it hard and fast here because I've got 3 weeks worth of preloaded questions plus the live chat. Got Chris in Midwest USA sailing the 3rd coast leading up to the Hobie 16 Nationals in Northwest Indiana. Great stuff. Well, good luck with all of that, Chris. Hope you have a good time with that. Chris continues. He'd highly recommend sourcing EVA rubber that uses 3M VHB tape. Now, this is anybody looking to put the rubber grip on your boat, this sounds like solid gold information. So pay attention. 3M VHB tape, rather than just a generic adhesive tape product. That sounds like the stuff. Thanks very much for passing that on, Chris. All right, Sam, who was talking about the jib halyard, who also needs a hull, by the way. Sam, also let us know where you are in the world, and then we'll have a better idea if somebody's got a hull. I know that Anders in Sweden is selling some 16, I think 116 hull. So if you happen to be anywhere near there, you might be in luck. The blocks for my jib halyard are brand new, but the rope is the original from 1978. Going to change it. Great stuff. Good choice. All right. And Sam is also going to look for a new 16. Yes, please send me an email. That's great. And Chris asked, is it rum today in the bottle? No, it's I'm sorry, it's just water because it's still only 20 past 6 and I don't hit the rum until about 9 on a general day. Or is it? All right. So let's go to the next preloaded question, which is from Ryan. Ryan, who we know from a previous episode of Show Us Your Cat and What Went Wrong. Ryan, who sails in Maui in Hawaii. He says, I've been hitting some wave chop and curious about tacking in waves, how to best go about it. Yeah, so tacking in waves, what we're looking to do is reduce the potential amount of friction as we're putting the boat through the wind. So I'm going to draw a picture on the slightly wobbly whiteboard. So this would be for waves or chop. Even if you're racing, you've always got the choice, unless you really haven't been paying attention and you're in a, oh my goodness, we're going to crash situation. You've always got the choice to decide, at least within a boat length or two, when you're going to tack. So you can time your tack. So the time when you don't want to tack is when you're coming down here. This boat is going to, how big is this boat going to be? Oh, you can hardly see that. Let's go with the black. Okay, that's a bit of an exaggeration, but when you're coming down the wave, down the back of a wave, it would normally be, that is not the time to tack, because what happens is when you go over the top of the wave, the boat will come out, and then when it goes down, it's going to push all of the bows into the water. If you go for a tack when all of your bows are in the water, then what's going to happen is you're going to have the maximum friction when you're going for the tack. The time to go for that tack is going to be as you're coming up the front side of the wave, because then that means if you initiate the tack just as the bows are coming out of the wave, then you've got the smallest amount of friction and the boat's going to pop through much more quickly. There we go. That's what I reckon. So just try and find out where I am in the live chat. All right, we got Patrick on board, who says boat is all hooked up to the car. Nice wind forecast. About to leave and work has called. So now here watching while working instead. Well, very sorry to hear that, Patrick. Hopefully you've got some time over the weekend to get it in the water. I do hope so, because it is very important to get out on the water whenever you can. So good luck with that. I hope work doesn't take too long. All right, we've got Toot on board in Texas. Hello, Toot. Great to have you on board. Canadian Tim has used Windy also. It's quite good. Yeah, I thought so too. Chris says, I think, is this for the weather forecasting, try sail flow. And we've got possibly my favorite YouTube user handle, I Love Windex, who says, hey, what's up? Hello, I Love Windex. Thanks for tuning in. All right, back to the preloaded. So what have we got next? All right, so Scott, who was in the live chat, I don't know if he's still there. He said he's just fitted the EPO 3s to his boat, which I believe is from the mid-80s. It's a 16. He says he's got almost zero weather helm on port tack, sorry. The tiller sits in an open palm, gradually bears up into the wind. Don't feel like I'm pulling much on the tiller. When traveling on starboard tack, it really bears hard into the wind with the slightest release of the grip. What is the difference and how do I correct it? Pulling my steering system from the boat, bringing it back between sailings I'm only thing staying on the beach, the boat. I just wonder if I put steering back on backwards. All right. So if you've got heavy steering on one tack, but not the other tack, it will be the opposite rudder which is causing you those issues. So what it sounds like for Scott there is if it's on starboard tack where the boat turns into the wind really hard, it would be the rudder on the port side, perhaps. And without actually seeing it and having a look, I would assume that the rudder on the port side isn't quite tucking into the boat enough. So if it's back, if it's the rudder blade, back of the boat here, is the back of the boat. If this is the rudder blade, if it's allowed to come back at all like that, that is really going to send you into the wind when that rudder blade is on the leeward side. So first port of call is to check that out. With the European EPO 3 rudder blades, what happened? Well, when they're supplied, they have a piece of rubber glued to the front, but then with the previous boats in the rudder stock, they had a piece of rubber glued in there. That's double rubber, which pushes the rudder blade back. So I actually had to cut all the rubber off the rudder blades before installing them. And that made them handle much nicer indeed. There we go. All right. So I hope that helps. All right. Now, the next question is from Elegume 1635, who says, I have a Hobie Tiger and would like to know if it's possible to use a Hobie Wildcat mainsail on it. I know that the hooks are different. Is it possible to change the hook by yourself on the sail or on the mast? Yeah. So what we've got here is the Hobie Tiger uses I don't know what you use on the Hobie Miracle 20 in the States, but on the European 20s, it's the same as on the Tiger, where on the top of the sail there's a plate like this with this nose on it. The halyard goes through a hole there, and then that nose goes into a hole in the top of the mast, thus locking it in. Now, these plates, they just bolt onto the top of the sail. So you'd think that would be pretty easy, wouldn't it? Well, unfortunately, maybe not, because on a Wildcat and any other sail, if this is the top of the sail, you'll have at the top of the sail an eye like this, which has been machine pressed into the sail. So the problem here is going to be removing that eye so that you can put one of these fittings onto the top of the sail. You would also, because of the way that these fittings are, is once you have somehow got rid of this eye in the top of the sail, you'd then have to cut away part of the sail, kind of cutting this bit off, just because of the shape of this fitting. So if this sail is going to never go on a Wildcat ever again and only ever go on a Tiger, then I would go for it. It's probably going to be quite nice. The rest of the sail is going to work really well. It's got the same dimensions. So I'm going to sneeze. Okay, I didn't sneeze. Thanks. Anyway, yeah, so if you can get that pressed in kringle out of the top of the sail, then that would be a really good start. And then to make the holes where the bolts go, what you could do is take some sort of spike, like a marlin spike, heat up the end using a blowtorch if you've got one, and then everyone's got a blowtorch or a camping stove, and then with the plate in position, definitely with it in position, you then just put your marlin spike through the holes and burn holes in the sail. Because by burning the holes in there, what that does is means that it's then sealed. So there you go. All right. So back into the live chat. Dopey Dave, who got involved with the super sticker, says, can I sell my 16 on this channel? Yes, you can. What you could do is, just for a start, in the live chat, if you let us know where you are in the world, then maybe we could sell it right now. But otherwise, you can, if anybody is selling a boat or if they're looking for a boat, you can send me pictures of your boat, or give me a description of what it is you're looking for, where you are, how much you want for the boat, or how much you're looking to spend. And I'll put together a short video just to put it out to the community to see if we can find what it is that you're looking for. Or if you're selling one, to find someone who's looking for what you've got. There we go. All right. So back into the preloaded questions. And this is the last one. This is from Frank, who says, he's just asking, why do we not always use masthead floats on our boats? So what, if you're not familiar with the masthead float, is that on? Yeah. Here's the mast, and then the masthead float would be like a small airship that sits on the top with a lot of litres. I think they've probably got about 30 litres of volume there. So what these masthead floats do is they mean that when you capsize the boat, if you capsize the boat cannot go completely upside down. It will rest on its side, which is really good if you're sailing in shallow water, because if you're sailing in shallow water, you definitely don't want your mast going into the bottom. Oh no, you don't. And what they also do is they mean that you will never one of the most dangerous things with catamaran sailing is, let's have a slowly capsizing boat here. So there's the mast, there's the boat, there's the hulls, and here's the water. Here's the water. So if you're on your boat and it's capsizing and you were in this position here, then it's not a great place to be, because the boat, once it gets here with the mast under the water, it is going to invert. And if you're there and you don't take action quickly to get out either through the front of the trampoline or the back of the trampoline, then you could end up under the trampoline, which is not a good place to be, not at all. So the masthead float is going to completely eliminate this risk of being trapped under the boat. So it is a very good idea. But that doesn't answer the question. That almost says, that asks the question, why aren't we putting them on all of our boats? Well, the reason is, when you have got the masthead float on, when the boat cannot invert, the boat is going to sit on its side. We're just going to have a slightly different mast here. It's not, perhaps not going to look quite right, but the boat's going to sit on its side, and the masthead float is going to become a little bit like a very small hull. And with the wind blowing onto the trampoline, the boat will drift much faster than anybody can swim. So if you capsize because you fell off the boat and you're in the water down here, you're going to have very little chance of getting back to your boat. And if it doesn't have a masthead float on it, the boat will invert, and meaning that it's not going to go very fast at all through the water. So that is why we're not fitting masthead floats to everything. So what I would seriously look at is, if you are sailing without a masthead float, then just whenever you're taking anybody out sailing, or before you go out sailing the next time, just have a look at the boat and think, right, if we capsize, what is our best escape routes to get out from that trampoline space? And if, what I would say is, if you're behind the shroud, it would be out the back. And if you're forwards of the shroud, it will be out the front. There we go. Thanks for your question there, Frank. I think that could have been very helpful for someone when they're in that vulnerable situation there. All right, no further questions, please, because we have been going for over an hour now. So I'm just going to go through. This is just going to be quick answers now, because we are in the back section of today's Q&A. We've got Frank in Canada. Hi, Frank. Going to my first race regatta on a Tornado in a couple of weeks. Very nice too. You're going to love it. Boat in Blacksmith. Hello. My Hobie 16 is a 1980, and I can only get the forestay to the top hole on the chain plate and the shrouds to the second hole. Yeah, the older boats, like I would say pre-95 especially, the rigging and the measurements are definitely going to be different to the ones that you've seen me talking about in the videos, because our boats are reasonably new. So if you can only get your forestay in the top hole on the chain plate, then you might want to consider, I'm assuming you're just using one chain plate. You could consider going for the second chain plate option, which is what we do anyway. It's widely used, where you've got the one chain plate, and that you just connect that with a pin to another chain plate, and then your forestay actually attaches to the end of the second chain plate. This would be the bridle wires going to the boat here. And then what we do is, when we put the jib on, we attach the jib to about second or third hole on this chain plate. And that means that then all of this is completely loose. So what we do is we put elastic from here to the bridle wires, so that chain plate will actually end up here, and that will pull your forestay tight. So we'll have this elastic here. That is what I reckon. All right, Toot says, Murray's has all the 3M deck covering. I did it on the 17 and fixing to use on the Getaway. Great stuff. Good to know. So get over to Murray's if you're in the USA for your rubber grip needs with the good adhesive. Steve says, is it better to learn sailing on a traditional boat before learning on a catamaran? Should I go straight to a cat instead? Funny you should ask, Steve, because this is actually going to be an upcoming video that I'm going to make The short answer, I would say, is at least do some on a monohull or a traditional boat before jumping onto a catamaran, if you've got the facility to do so. The monohull is going to teach you a lot more quickly than the catamaran, because the monohull is going to punish you if you get it wrong. The punishment being perhaps a capsize and a swim. I'm going to go into a lot more detail on that in a video that's coming soon. So there we go. Thank you for your question. Toot says, go cat. You won't go back. My holder hasn't been out all season. Missing the context there a little bit. It must have been something I said about 20 years ago. Yeah, Chris says, Steve, you should learn whatever you're interested in. I would say yes to that as well, but people who can sail monohulls first will generally become better cat sailors in a shorter time, because they have a greater understanding of how the sail works. Because like on something like a, let's say a laser pico, which I think are fairly omnipresent, if you pull the sail in, you have a very immediate effect. Whereas if you let the sail out, very immediate effect. Where you sit is very important. So you learn that much more quickly on a small monohull than you would on a catamaran. You could be sailing a catamaran very inefficiently without knowing. It's like people who learn sailing on yachts or large keel boats are not generally as good. Just saying, not generally. Obviously, anybody watching this is the exception to that rule. But generally, people who've learned on bigger, unresponsive boats don't end up being as good. Mason says, how fast have you been? Not been very fast this week, but my top speed of all time logged. Sorry, it's getting a bit dark. Should put a light on. My top speed that I've logged. Oh, can we do a bit of this? I'm using a second spooky blue light. Is 25.6 knots, which it was tremendously quick. Felt very quick, but I did feel that if I'd have persevered on that session, could have gone a bit faster. All right, we've got Matthew there in Connecticut, USA, although he's normally from Baltimore. We need to make that clear. Bought my 16 on a little road trip and have been tearing it up on the lake here. Nice. All right, I love Windex, quietly awaiting the beans to knots conversion table that someone suggested. Perhaps some merch opportunity. Yes, if you didn't see it on the community tab on YouTube, I just asked the community because somebody suggested it. I can't remember who it was, that I need to do basically a glossary of all of the terms used on Joyrider TV, such as giving it the beans, how many beans is 1 knot, for example, and so on. So if you haven't seen that, check it out on the community tab, which you'll find, I think you'll find that on YouTube. I've never actually looked for a community tab, but or on my channel, go to Joyrider TV, the channel, then hit community. There you go. All right, Boating Blacksmith says, when I go downwind, the rudders want to pull the direction of the sail so hard that I almost can't hold the tiller extension. Yeah, that is likely to be they're not tucking under the boat enough. So check out the servicing your rudders video and get them tucked in to the boat as much as they can. If they are tucked in as much as they can and going downwind, she's not feeling good, then check out the rudder alignment. Again, check out the video on that one. And then you should be feeling a lot better there. All right. So Dopey Dave is selling his Hobie 16 and he is in Cyprus. So if anybody's watching in Cyprus, and is looking for a 16, I can only imagine there's not a lot of 16s up for sale in Cyprus. So get in touch with me. I'll put you in touch with Dave and we'll get you in touch with that 16. All right. Robert K is there a beans leaderboard? Wondering how a K1 could end up there. There is the global speed stick, which you can find on totaljoyrider.com. Check that out. And that effectively is about the beans, how fast you're going. All right. Toot says, I have floats, bobs on the 17 and getaway. Very good. Keeping it safe. We've got Max there in Rosenheim, Germany. Hello there, cat sailors around the world. Max would like to wish you fair winds and lots of fun. All right. Matthew says, I had a legit man overboard drill the other day when my masthead float departed the mast. So came off the mast. Oh, my goodness. Got to drill it and re-tap those mounting holes. So I sail in super shallow water. Definitely wants it. Golly. Toot says, I started sailing on a windsurfer. Yeah, so I also windsurf as well. My sort of path was learn on a monohull, then started crewing catamarans while I was still monohull sailing, then got my own catamaran, a Dart 18, and sailed that every single day, probably for about 10 years. During that time, I learnt to windsurf as well when it was really too strong to sail the Dart. And that is how I got to have a fairly good idea of how it all works. All right, Lucas in Austria, how to depower a 16 in strong wind. Unfortunately, Lucas, this is going to be the short answer, but here we go. First one, how to depower your 16. First and easiest is let the traveller out. If your traveller isn't all the way out, it means you can depower the boat further just using the traveller, which is a very quick and easy way to depower it. Once you've let the traveller out, then start controlling the main sheet from that position. So think of your traveller as gears perhaps, or set the traveller to how windy it is and then work the main sheet from that position, and that's going to keep her in the sweet spot. It is the main sheet that is always going to save you. There we go. Next one, the downhaul. Pull the downhaul as hard as you can and then a bit more. If you want to get the maximum downhaul on, pull in the maximum amount of main sheet first. That's going to pull the sail down, making it easier to get your downhaul on. There you go. And the third one is loosen the rig off a bit. So on your jib halyard, let off about that much rope, and that is going to make a massive difference to your power. So just finishing off with Matthew, who says he's used Murray's 3M rubber grip for half a season this year. And I think my trapeze shock cords are a little bit too tight because of the constant moving on the trapeze, just tore up the bottom edges of the rubber. Yeah, so make sure your trapeze shock cord isn't too tight. And it is worth using one of the holes in the trampoline if you've got holes in your trampoline. But anyway, thanks very much. That's all we've got time for just now, because in Greece, it is time for a beer, which is what I'm going to do. So thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like button before you leave, because that means then this video will be put in front of more people. And I think there was some good points in this today. Thanks to Dave and to Colonel Failure for getting involved with the super sticker. There's still time if anyone else wants to get a super sticker out. Jan says, thanks very much for your videos. Thank you, Jan, for jumping in there. Robert K says, keep going. All right. So maybe on Sunday I'll have the next episode of Show Us Your Cat ready, but I've only got tomorrow morning to do it, and that video chews up time. That is what I've known. So thanks very much. Keep it safe if you're going out on the water, and have a good time. Give it the beans, give it the juice, mow the lawn, and baste the turkey all day. Thank you very much.